We're about 2 weeks removed from the James Harden trade, and it's looking pretty obvious as to who won that deal. And no, it wasn't the Clippers and the little retirement home they built for themselves out in LA. It has been the Philadelphia 76ers. Yes, somehow, when you remove a former MVP from your roster, the team just starts to mesh better and play actual winning basketball, because right now, the Philadelphia 76ers are at the top of the Eastern Conference. And I know it's super early, but the 76ers are looking like one of the biggest favorites in the NBA currently. I mean, as I'm recording this video, they're 8-2, with their second loss coming very recently to an Indiana Pacers team who they beat 2 days before. So this 76ers team has looked pretty unstoppable. Hell, they were solid at the beginning of the season, and James Harden was on the roster, but he was not playing for the team just because things with the GM and James Harden had gotten so ugly. But now that James Harden is gone, it really feels like all of the drama that's been holding back this 76ers organization for the past decade is finally done and over with. And when I say drama, I really just mean the players being upset or the GMs going out and just losing on purpose. Yes, there's been so much things off the court for the 76ers that have really stopped this team from winning it all, although they've been damn close. And if you're a 76ers fan, then it's pretty obvious as to what I'm referring to, but if you're not, or you're just new to basketball, I will go deeper into the process and how it all kind of led to where the 76ers are today later in this video. But for now, I really want to maintain the focus on Tyrese Maxey, because dude has been balling. He's finally taken the leap that all these little NBA nerds talk about all the damn time, and that is the leap into stardom. After being in the NBA for about 4 seasons, Maxey has finally come into his own, and the 76ers finally have the Robin to Joel Embiid's Batman that they've been trying to find Embiid's entire career. Now, if I'm being honest, back in 2020 when Maxey was drafted with the 21st overall pick, there was no ounce of me that believed he could become the player he is today. Sure, did he play well enough to get drafted in the first round? Yeah. I mean, he had a pretty good season in Kentucky. He was only there for 1 year. But while being there, he was able to get coached by one of the greatest men to ever coach the game of basketball, especially at the collegiate level. I'm talking John Calipari. And shout out Emmanuel quickly, real quick, because him and Tyrese Maxey made a pretty solidified backcourt that brought the Wildcats 25 wins in the 31 games that they got to play. Of course, due to COVID, there was no March Madness that year, but in the games that Maxey got to compete in, he would go on to average 14 points, 4 boards, and about 3 assists. Although his shooting numbers weren't the best, he did average 42% from the field overall, and from the three-point line, he was a 29% shooter. Hell, even from the free throw line, Maxey only hit it about 83% of the time, but the rest of his game was so solidified that, the Sixers went out and they took a chance on him. How did they get that pick in the first place? Oh yeah, they traded Jeremy Grant to the Thunder 4 years earlier. Not that you care, but now you know. Anyway, by the time Maxey joined the 76ers, they had already been a solidified playoff team. I mean, they had made the playoffs 3 times in a row at this point, but they hadn't become the Eastern Conference semifinals merchants that we know them as today that would come while Maxey was on the roster. But like I said, this team was already really good. He wasn't brought on with guaranteed minutes by no means. He had to earn them. And with a head coach like Doc Rivers, he was really going to need to prove it in practice. And that's basically what he did. Because not only did he play in 61 games where he averaged 15 minutes per, but he was also able to start in 8 of those games. And during his rookie year, he was able to put up numbers like 8 points and 2 assists. And this rookie, not only did he play a lot for a contending team, but he was also involved in their playoff run because he got to play in 12 playoff games his rookie season. Sure, his minutes got cut and he didn't contribute the most, but that's still a lot for a guy like Tyrese Maxey. However, we wouldn't see major jumps in his game until his sophomore season. Why? Well, because guys like Seth Curry and Danny Green, who were previously starters for the 76ers, were getting older, and Doc Rivers and the organization were looking to head into the future with their backcourt. And to do so, it meant that young guys like Tyrese Maxey and Matisse Thybulle were going to be getting a lot more minutes. Hell, both of them essentially became starters for this team when they were healthy enough to play. Maxey, he played in 75 games, started 74 of them. In one season, his minutes jumped from 15 minutes per to 35. Yes, more than doubling. Of course, all of his numbers would take a huge jump because of that, but his shooting percentages also exceeded the expectations previously set, and his defense got a little bit better. I mean, his points, 8 to 17.5. Assist numbers, now he's averaging 4 assists, and he's getting a solid 3 rebounds a game. And that's not even mentioning his 3-point shooting. You see, up until that point, Maxey really never needed to worry about his 3-point shooting never being able to fall, especially consistently. Why? Because for his entire life, he had basically been the man. I mean, he was 6 foot plus, just like all of these other NBA players, a superstar in high school, was really good in college, but when you reach the NBA, it's a whole nother level. Everybody is just as talented as you, it's just about who wants it more. And for Maxey, if he wanted to improve his game, his 3-point shooting was going to need to take a jump, and it did his sophomore year. You see, his 3-point percentage went from just 30 to 42%, and it's not because he was shooting less threes. In fact, his 3-point attempts doubled, and he was still shooting a higher percentage, which was fantastic. This was one of the key moments in Maxey's young career where everybody began to take notice of how talented this young kid is. Of course, this was the season that the team decided to go out and acquire James Harden at the trade deadline, which did shake things up a little bit. That meant Ben Simmons was no longer on the team, and a few more pieces would need to be moved for James Harden to enter. And of course, when that happened, Tyrese Maxey did have to play slightly differently, but that didn't stop what he did in the playoffs. Because with a future MVP on the roster and former MVP on the roster, Tyrese Maxey, at only 21 years old, led this team in scoring in the playoffs. And maybe that's because Doc Rivers worked him like a kid in a coal mine. I mean, Tyrese Maxey, in the 12 games he played, he would average 40 minutes. Yes, 40 minutes, which also led to him boosting up his stats yet again. I mean, 3.5 rebounds with nearly 4 assists a game. Tyrese Maxey was fantastic. This is only his sophomore year, his first real playoff run where he's involved with the team, and he's playing really well. I mean, he was a big reason they were able to handle the Toronto Raptors in 6 games in the first round. Of course, the second round wasn't so pretty, but when is the second round ever pretty for the Philadelphia 76ers? Almost never. Like I said, these guys are second round merchants because they love to make it there, but never like to go further than that. Which leads us to Tyrese Maxey's junior season, which was last year, and that was really good. I mean, sure, his numbers didn't take as big of a jump, but that's just because his minutes were around the same, and he didn't really need to play all that differently, especially since Harden was now going to be there for the entire season, and Joel Embiid was really going to step into his own, as this would be the year that Joel Embiid would win that MVP, which, you know, probably should have been Jokic's third, but that's for another video. This one is talking about Tyrese Maxey's junior season, and he played really well in it, don't get me wrong. This was another year where Tyrese Maxey was able to improve his 3-point shot. James Harden would have a full season with the squad, and Joel Embiid would play out of his mind. Finally, they have a solidified core on this team once again. Plus, Ben Simmons is out of town, so they don't gotta worry about any of that drama. Of course, they wouldn't know it, but drama would soon follow after the ending of this season. Why? Because I, along with everybody else, believed this was their year. They were finally gonna figure it out. The process would be over, and it would end magically. Shout out Sam Hinkie. I mean, they played phenomenally this go-around, especially in the regular season, where they were able to finish second behind the Milwaukee Bucks, who ended up losing in the first round, by the way. So after they lost in the first round, the 76ers were looking like one of the favorites, hell, the favorite to come out of the Eastern Conference. All they had to do was get past a very strong and loaded Boston Celtics team who had just made it to the NBA Finals the year before. And James Harden was going to be the key to get this done. At least you would think. But that isn't what happened. Why? Because while James Harden had some great games versus the Celtics, he also had some really terrible ones where he played out of his mind. He was not in his mind. Where was he? I don't know. Tyrese Maxey was there because Tyrese Maxey had himself a hell of a series versus the Celtics. Doesn't matter when one of your two stars doesn't show up at all. That's probably why the Celtics were able to beat the 76ers in 7 games. Now, losing that series was very important because that meant the team was going to be getting shaken up. Of course, the team was going to need a fall guy. They had made it to the semi-conference finals, 3 times in a row? 4 times in the past 5 years. Yeah, someone was going to need to take the blame, and that was Doc Rivers. See ya. Here comes Nick Nurse, who was able to bring the Toronto Raptors a ring, so maybe he can do it for us. At least that was their mindset. And obviously, like I said earlier in the video, James Harden, out of town, traded. Now it's time for Maxey to shine, which he has been doing in 10 games this season, and it's beautiful to watch. I mean, he's one of the main reasons I've been watching Philly games because of how Maxey has improved. 28 points per, of course that might drop, but hell, mind-blowing as heck. His shooting hasn't been better from the field ever, I don't think. 49%, pretty impressive. I love to watch the ball go in the hoop, and Maxey does that. And to think, none of this would have happened without the process. They would have never been able to draft Joel Embiid so high. You know, Markelle Fultz, he gets onto the team, supposed to be Joel Embiid's co-star. His career gets derailed because of injuries. Then they got a guy like Jimmy Butler, who soon shipped out because they choose to pay Tobias Harris over him. And then they have Ben Simmons, who's his next co-star. Oh no, Ben Simmons falls apart mentally and has a lot of back issues. He's not who he was. Now they got James Harden, former MVP. He's supposed to be Joel Embiid. You know, they're supposed to be one of the greatest duos ever alive. James Harden, what does he bring? Only trouble. He's out after 1.5 years. Boom. Tyrese Maxey is Joel Embiid's true co-star. You can't write a better script than that. And it would be even better if they topped it off with an NBA Finals ring this season. We'll see if the Sixers are finally able to break this second round curse they've been stuck in for the past half decade. Anyway, that's about it. Catch y'all later. Much love. Deuces.